Hello and welcome to another fun-filled edition of Adam's Music Box, where today I want to talk about one of the finest singers of all time, and this is Jon Lucien. Now, if the music industry wasn't so dependent on marketing and images and payola and all of the things that we know make up some of the more corrupting and corrupt aspects of the music industry, Jon Lucien would be known as one of the greatest vocalists of all time and possibly the best vocalist to emerge in that wonderfully fruitful decade of the 70s. Now, people who know music, who really know music, already know this, but the wider listening public sadly hasn't been exposed to Jon Lucien as much as they ought to be. Um, Vocals are something very interesting because it's the most dependent of all musical instruments, if you will, on the body, because there is nothing external to instrumentalize. It is all about bringing the internal to the external. And as so far as that's true, I think that to be a great vocalist, you really need to at least, in terms of most of the metrics by which we would measure a great vocalist, you need to be born with it. It needs to be God-given. Yes, some people are naturally good guitarists. Some people, if they have a great lung capacity, are very good at a brass or a wind instrument. Someone with a wide span of fingers has certain advantages if they're going to play piano or another keyboard instrument, but nothing is more sort of heavenly ordained, if you will, than the voice. Now, that's never usually enough because you can ruin your voice, even if it's naturally beautiful, if you don't understand proper technique. So it's sort of the Lord giveth and taketh awayeth, because if you play drums badly, you just need to relearn it. If you play guitar badly, you're probably not going to hurt your fingers. But if you sing with technique that is too deviant from some sort of norm, you may strain your voice. And a lot of famous vocalists have done that by pushing it to some sort of limit that's a bit over the top. Now, Jon Lucien was doubly blessed in this sense because not only was he born with this warm baritone voice, but he had the wonderful ability to navigate his voice around the rhythmic and harmonic chordal structures of music. And although he had one of those voices that could sing the phone book and do so compellingly, he fortunately chose to sing some really good songs. We'll get to that in a moment. But one of the other things that I really love about his vocal style is, although he had this deep and incredibly powerful baritone voice, he was in many ways at his most intense, his most emotive, and most compelling when he was singing in soft, dynamic tones, piano and pianissimo, as we say in music. And there is some truth to the fact that when someone is playing an instrument loud, or when someone is singing loud, forte, fortissimo, etc., it is somewhat easier to produce a beautiful or a pleasant tone when doing something loud than when doing something quiet. Take the violin or viola or cello, for example. To play quietly, but to still have a full bodied and convincing and beautiful tone, it's something that many violinists and other string players struggle with for years when they're learning their instrument. Guitar, even to play a guitar with the volume turned up, really just bashing the hell out of it, you can get a decent tone. But to play quiet and mesmerizing and something that draws the audience in, not easy. Drums, very difficult to keep the intensity and even to keep rhythm when you're playing quietly. Some drummers need to play loud just to be able to internalize the rhythm. Great drummers are able to do that even when playing quietly. And with vocals, it's possibly this sort of loud to soft conundrum is possibly one of the most difficult things of all, because voice relies on projection, it relies on the diaphragm. And when you're really going for it, you can produce a pretty good sound. But to be able to produce something that projects, that is full bodied, that doesn't, peter out along the edges and still remain quiet in your dynamics, That is not easily done. And I don't know if anyone did that better than Jon Lucien. Wonderful, wonderful person. Now, of course, his first album off of RCA was an absolute classic, an instant classic, I Am Now from 1970. And his second album, Rashida from 1973, contains what is probably his signature song in many people's minds. And this is the title track, Rashida. Beautiful. And this really just demonstrates so well how Jon Lucien is able to navigate the chordal changes of a really beautifully composed song and use his voice not to get stuck in traffic when the chords change, but to flow over traffic as though you're riding in a beautiful Cadillac with the softest suspension known to man, something that many people with class did in the 70s, going on like now. And he continued to make some wonderful albums. He went over to Columbia Records in the middle of the decade, but continued to do some wonderful stuff. Premonition, a great, great album. He continued to play live and to record until his death at the age of 65 in 2007. But he's generally known as someone who made his mark in the 70s, and people who know music and love music love Jon Lucien. He was in demand as a vocalist for so many instrumentalists, both in the worlds of jazz and in the worlds of sort of more pop-oriented soul and R&B. You will not be disappointed when you listen to him. You'll just sit back and say, what a voice. And then you'll say, what technique, what songs, and what a wonderful way to navigate around them, piloting his voice, if you will, around the music. And when you listen to him, you'll see exactly what I mean. One of the best vocalists of all time. He really ought to be celebrated more than he is. Don't miss him. Like, subscribe. We will see you next time. Take care.